Alright, what is up YouTube? Today I'm riding the 2023 Suzuki DR-Z400SM. This is Suzuki's supermoto bike from the factory. I really like that Suzuki is making a supermoto bike from the factory. Now there are some other brands that are making them from the factory as well. Kawasaki, KTM. I think it's cool. Supermotors have kind of become pretty popular in the past few years. And they're just fun to ride around town. I recently rode the KLX300SM, so that's Kawasaki's version, and so that was a 300cc engine. This is a 400-ish cc engine, so it's going to be close in the same supermoto class as that bike. This is not going to compare to the KTM SMC. That one is a 690 and that one has a ton of horsepower. Overall though, this bike is very basic. This is pretty much a straight dirt bike with supermoto wheels and tires on it. As you can see, we have a little display here. Doesn't really give you much, doesn't even have a gear indicator on it. It's mostly just a speedo, to be honest. There's really not much technology else on here. Taking off from a stop is very easy. The throttle's nice and smooth. And it doesn't have a ton of horsepower, so it's not going to really blow you away with horsepower. And along those lines, it's going to be smooth on and off the throttle. I actually used to own a 2001 Suzuki DR-Z400, and it was a supermoto as well. But that one was a dirt bike converted into a supermoto. So these days, they just come from the factory like this. And I really liked that bike. It was super fun, although... Alright, let's pass here. It's actually got some good power. You gotta rev it out a bit. My problem with the supermoto was it wasn't practical. The seat wasn't very comfortable. Having it as my only bike was really hard for me. I don't know, it's like it handles one part of motorcycling pretty well, but the rest of them not so much. I really like supermotos. They are a ton of fun to ride. They're just not all that practical. Now the seating position is pretty much upright, just like a dirt bike. My arms have a lot of room to relax. You can see the seat, you can kind of slide up and down, forward and back on the seat, so you can kind of choose where you want to ride on the seat, which is nice. And my arms have room to relax, so I'm not outstretched at all. Now in terms of seat height, I cannot flat foot this bike on both sides. I'm 5'11", so this is a taller sitting bike than a lot of the sport bikes out there. The suspension is pretty soft though. I can really bounce it pretty easily, so it is pretty soft suspension. Yeah, taking off from a stop is so easy. This is not going to be comparable to one of the 400cc dirt bikes, the off-road only dirt bike. They like to gear these supermotos a lot longer so they can handle freeway and bigger city rides and everything. So the power is not going to be close to that. This bike has about 40 horsepower almost, so that's a decent amount of power. And this bike does only have 5 gears as well. They geared it longer, but only 5 gears. So coming to a low speed crawl here, it is pretty easy to balance, although it does like to turn. It's very light. It feels very light, so you can just throw it around wherever you want and it goes instantly. So I don't have an RPM gauge on here, so it's kind of hard to see what RPM I'm at. I have no idea where this red line's or where the power band is, but it feels like it has some good power. You do have to really rev it out and roll into it. It's not going to be an instant torque hit. It likes to kind of build up the power. But yeah, supermotors are honestly one of the best handling motorcycles out there because they have the grip of the street tires, but the lightness and agility of a dirt bike. I really like throwing these around corners. And yeah, it just feels good. Just feels super easy to turn. And it likes to flick really easily. Along with the seating position here, we have a dirt bike seat. It's not that comfortable, I'm gonna be honest. The KTM 690 SMC had a little bit wider of a seat, and that was a little bit more comfortable. This one is not the most comfortable for me. After 30 minutes to an hour of riding, my butt would be absolutely numb. The nice thin seat is good because I can grip the tank really easily, and I like having my grip on the tank with my legs. Just feels nice and secure. But yeah, going down the road here, let's see. Yeah, we're in 5th gear. I don't know what RPM we're at, but we're probably at a lower RPM because we're only doing 47 miles an hour. There's a good amount of vibrations in the seat and the handlebars and the foot peg. I think it's okay on this bike. You're not going to be taking this bike on long touring rides, so the vibrations don't bother me as much for a fun play bike like this. I don't really like the way it sounds either. The exhaust is kind of wimpy and the engine sounds like a tractor. So it does need a good exhaust system to really wake it up. I feel like this does have more power than the Kawasaki KLX300SM. So I do feel like it has more acceleration and torque and pull that you can feel. Yeah, it feels like you do have to downshift to get to the power. It doesn't have power everywhere. Like if I'm in 5th gear, we're going 40 miles an hour at a low RPM here, roll on. It gives me a little bit of pull, but it's pretty weak at lower RPMs. That's to be expected though. This is only 400cc engine. It feels pretty stable and planted going down the street though. Downshifting is easy. I don't feel like it has a slipper clutch. It feels a little bit more mechanical than that. Shifting is pretty easy. It's pretty standard shifting. I mean, it has a little clunk into gear. Nothing special about shifting. I don't know if this bike has ABS or not. It does have Nissan brakes. Nothing special in the braking department either. Very basic bike all around. The brakes feel good though. This is a very light bike. I think the bike only weighs 320 pounds-ish. So it doesn't need a ton of braking, but so vibrations are getting progressively worse in the handlebars here. So we're at speed now, and I think I'm in 5th gear. Yeah, I should be. Lots of vibrations in the handlebars. I'm doing about 60 miles an hour. All right, let's roll on. Oh yeah, that's some good power right there. Catching up with the group here. Yeah, that's some good power actually for a supermoto, for a small engine supermoto. That's some decent acceleration right there. Like if I roll on, it's got the power to get me up to speed. I feel like the Kawasaki struggled a bit more at higher speeds. Now there is a ton of wind blast here, so the wind's hitting me in the helmet and the body quite a bit. So this is not really a freeway bike. You can ride it on the freeway in a pinch, but you're not gonna have a great time on the freeway with this bike. This is a city bike or a country road bike. You know, nothing fast. Here in Phoenix, everyone goes 75, 80. So this bike is not going to handle that well. Feels like you're gonna be revving it out all the time. If you do need to get on the freeway and take a quick ride on the freeway, highway, it can do it for sure. I don't feel like I'm getting blown around too much. It just feels like there's a lot of wind on my body. Let's take it around this corner here. Yeah, it feels good. No problems leaning it over. I just love the way supermotos feel. Let's get up to speed here. Yeah, it's got more than enough power to get up to speed on the freeway. I'm keeping up with the group here, but you are ringing it out at these higher speeds here, and there are, you know, a lot of vibrations, so it's not the smoothest. It doesn't really like going this fast. Rev matching is really easy and satisfying. Now on the brakes, yeah, there is quite a bit of suspension dive in the brakes because the suspension's soft, but I don't notice the suspension being too soft when I'm going down the street. or going around a corner. It handles pretty well, all things considered. Now, one thing to consider is this bike is still carbureted. So it is 2023, yes, but this bike is still carbureted, whereas some of the newer supermoto bikes are going to be fuel injected. So something to consider, you do have to use the choke and kind of warm this bike up before you ride it. And in higher elevation changes, you might have some issues. I think carburetors have gotten a lot better as of recently, but still you might have some carb related issues. Now this bike comes in at $7,700, so to me that's quite a bit of money for a supermoto bike. And here's my problem with expensive supermotos: they're good as second bikes, not so good as only bike. I wasn't man enough to have my supermoto as my only bike. It just wasn't practical enough for me. So you are paying a lot of money for a fun bike, a race bike possibly. I don't know, it's a little expensive for me. I don't know, for $7,700 you can get a lot more on the market. Like there's some sport bikes you can get for right around there, and they'll give you a lot more capability. I believe the Kawasaki is cheaper as well, but it's going to be lower power. I don't feel like this is going to be a major hooning bike either. I feel like this is going to be more of a relaxed supermoto. I mean, obviously you could probably wheelie this, you could probably hoon on it if you want, and by hooning I mean just going crazy on it, but this is going to be a little bit more reserved than the KTM 690, for example, or the Husqvarna 700. Like those are going to be hooning, absolute hoon monsters. Oh yeah, I love leaning this thing over. Supermotos just handle so well, and that includes this bike. And it does have some good power. I'm really surprised by the power. It's got some good acceleration pull. Overall, I like it. The seat is not very comfortable. That's any supermoto really. This one, yeah, it's just, my butt is numb already. It is not a comfortable seat. Yeah, you don't get a ton of technology. It's pretty basic for $7,700, and you still get a carbureted bike. It's a little expensive for my taste, but it is fun. It is fun to ride around for sure. Good offering. I like that the manufacturers are offering supermotos from the factory. Very easy to ride though. I feel like a beginner could start on a supermoto like this and have a good time, still have fun and not hurt yourself.